meeting to order the Indian Trail Town Council. Today is March 23rd, I think, 2021. And we're going to take roll call. I will do council. Mr. Morris.
Present.
Mr. Cohn.
Here.
Mr. McIntyre.
Here.
Mr. Barber.
Present.
And Mr. Head.
Present.
Okay, all present and accounted for. Kathy, would you take roll for staff and
Town Manager Mike McLaurin,
Here.
Attorney Karen Walter,
Here.
and Town Clerk Kathy Queen and Abby Ball.
Here.
Okay, and then also I'm going to call these, and Abby will verify that they are online. These are staff members and our captain of the police, the Indian Trail Police Force, Captain Kevin James, Jim Wadowitz, Kerry Warner, Adam McLam, Todd Hunsinger, Brandy Deese, Hayden Kramer, Alicia Massey.
Everyone except Alicia Massey is online.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, how about in Kevin James? We're good. Do we have any guests online? You know, Abby?
We do. We have a couple folks that will be here for the Glenhurst and Garmin. It looks like we have a Bob Bennett, Mark Kime, and Mason Greason.
Thank you.
okay. At this time, I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This time I will call for a moment of silence. If we would just add those for the 2 mass shootings in the past week in Atlanta and Boulder into our thoughts and prayers. Thank you. This time, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? If there's no additions or deletions, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
So moved.
Mr. Combs made the motion. Mr. McIntyre,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. Morse,
Approve.
Mr. Barber.
Approve.
Agenda is approved unanimously by council. Okay, now we're going into closed session. Okay, I need a motion to go into closed session under NCGS 143-31811A3. Council consult with the town attorney to protect attorney-client privilege.
So moved. Yeah.
Mr. Morse made the motion. Mr. Cohn,
Approve.
Mr. Barber,
Approve.
Mr. McIntyre,
Approve.
Mr. Head.
Approve.
Okay, all right, everyone. There's another link for you to move into. If we, I guess, leave this one and go to that one.
Mayor Alvarez, can you please, for the public that's watching, let them know how that works, that we're going and coming back?
Okay, we're going to leave for a few, go into a closed session, and we shall return to the same Zoom link, I'm assuming.
So if they stay on the link, it will resume, or they can watch
We'll
it.
resume shortly in open session. Okay. 0 and 1.
Everyone, close.
Mr. McIntyre has made the motion. Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. Morse,
Approve.
Mr. Cohn,
Approve.
Mr. Barber.
Send
Is he
him
on mute
another
again?
text. I'll send him a text.
All right, well. Since he's here, I assume he agrees. So we'll move on.
Mayor, I'd like, we didn't get hit.
Sorry,
Is that
Karen,
him?
I can't hear. Was that Karen?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we need to hear Mr. Barber's knowledge. that-
Yeah, he's here.
I'm
Mr.
here.
Barber. Okay,
Approve.
approved.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. That brings us to presentations. Amended Park and Rec policy, Mr. Kramer.
Absolutely. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Glad we were able to travel through some cyberspace with that. This evening, come before you to present some updated park and rec policies. What I'll do is I'll briefly summarize them all. And then if you have any questions, we can go policy by policy. In the document that was provided, there are 6 specific policies that we have cleaned up and updated. The first is the fee waiver policy. So this should be somewhat familiar with everyone as it was updated earlier this year. Second, you'll find the Grand Marshal selection policy. As noted in the policy, both the Indian Trail Lions Club and the Union West Rotary will be able to present a maximum of 3 names to be considered for the Grand Marshal each year. In the past, it has been practiced that mayor and council have been able to add their own nominations and or suggestions to those 3 names. That is not how the policy was written, and that is not a change that has been put in. It will be my suggestion that if mayor or council feels strongly that a name should be considered, that they would be able to contact either Union West Rotary Group or the Indian Trail Lions Club to have their name added into consideration. I believe this gives the clubs the ability to vet that name as well, and it keeps the relationships on good ground and good standing. Currently on council, you have someone that both is a member of Rotary and a member of Indian Trail Lions Club, so hopefully that communication with those 2 groups would be pretty seamless. The next 2 policies are very similar. The sponsorship and naming procedure and the solicitation of sponsorship allows for the Park and Rec Department to seek sponsorship. All sponsorship would be vetted by town manager and Park and Rec staff. And all of the sponsorship and naming rights would align with the town's values and vision. So for example, if someone, if a company that did not have a reputable reputation in the town, or they're dealing with the sale of tobacco, that does not meet what the ideals that we're looking for. So they would not be approached or be able to be solicited via that sponsorship policy. The vendor background policy is pretty simple. It allows us the opportunity to background check our vendors at our discretion. This is a change from what the previous policy was, but it goes with what are the best practices of today. Finally, the last policy is a new policy that comes before you. The memorial commemoration and or amenity donation, again, is new. The purpose of this is to establish some guidelines if an individual, a group, or an organization will like to donate or install something on the park lands. If you remember, about a year ago, there was a family that approached the town during public comments about the idea and interest in installing a sign on the park property that used to be their the family's property. This policy would encompass small items like that as well as larger items. That sums up the 6 policies that you would find in that. If there are any questions, I would be more than happy to answer.
Council have any question?
Yeah, actually, this is McIntyre. When I look at the agenda, it says potential action for amended park and rec policy. But in listening to Mr. Kramer, he says that the policy has been updated. I guess, should I assume that it's been adopted? What exactly is, what exactly are you looking for from the council this evening? Do you want to just kind of give us what the policies are and have us think about them, or are you looking for us to approve them?
Yeah, so these are, some of the policies have not changed. So for example, the fee waiver policy literally was word for word, letter for letter as it was and as it was presented and approved by council earlier this year. Other ones have changed, again, very slightly. So for example, the Grand Marshal policy, there were some spelling tweaks, there were some date adjustments, but the content was there. Same thing with the 2 sponsorship and vendor background policy. The only new policy before you is the memorial commemoration and or amenity donation. If council is okay with everything, we can take action tonight and approve the policy. If you would like to read it over, have any further communication, we can definitely do that, and then either put it on old business coming up in April, or if there aren't any questions between now and then, put it on consent agenda to approve.
And if I could add, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, the other thing we would do is we're basically taking 6 different policies and merging them into one for simplicity's sake.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay,
So it sounds like we need an action then.
an action or you can review. And
Well, yeah, I personally would like to review it before we just took action on it. It sounds harmless, but putting a pair of eyes on it and then throwing it in the consent agenda doesn't seem too far out of reason, if others agree.
I agree with that approach too.
I would agree with Jerry. Mr. Cohen,
I agree.
Mr. Barber,
Agreed.
and Mr. Head.
Agree.
Okay, so Hayden, they'd like to review it. If they have any questions, they'll call you, and then just be prepared to put it on a consent agenda in April.
Absolutely, and Mr. Mayor, I do have one second item. It's not a policy, but was asked to kind of review our athletic facility reservation process with you all this evening. If that's something that you'd like me to do now, it'll take maybe 4 or 5 minutes.
That's fine.
Absolutely.
While you got the floor.
Hey, perfect. Once I have it, watch out. So second this evening, again, there have been some questions and just conversations about how our athletic facilities are reserved and rented out. Again, just briefly want to walk over this process with you all. I know that you all receive, different calls from constituents that are either happy or unhappy or just looking for what that process is. So hopefully by the end of this, we are all on the same page, and you can help educate them or pass them along to our department for further conversation. So we do have 2 parks that we operate, athletic facilities, Crooked and Chestnut. Our facilities operate a spring season. For Chestnut, we consider this January 1 through June 30. For Crooked, it's March 1 through June 30th. And then we run a secondary season from essentially a summer season from July 1 to December 30th at Chestnut, and July 1 through December 1 out at Crooked. The reason for these dates are that Chestnut Square Park is a 12-month facility. The volleyball courts and the tennis courts, are not harmed by the cold weather, and the turf field can be played on all year round, unlike the grass that is out at Crooked. So if a group is interested in reserving a facility, we open them up for a window of time, for a month time. Applications are received, they're put into a folder and then reviewed by staff at the end of that and assigned permits. There are several criteria that we look at when we assign permits. It's not just a first come, first serve. It's not, oh, we like these people or don't like these people. Prioritization includes town events or things that the town has partnered on. Obviously, we want to be able to facilitate our own actions prior to anyone else. Then we work through historical user groups, nonprofit youth organizations, new youth organizations, then new adult organizations that may be looking to use the field. When looking through these requests, we also look at who is requesting the field and give priority to those groups that are serving residents over serving non-residents. We also prioritize youth programs over adult programs and programs that do not duplicate our own efforts. And then again, nonprofit groups over for-profit groups. Those folks that may miss the deadline or come to us after the fact are then reviewed on an initial round after those first permits are assigned. As you know, when we installed the turf field, on a positive note, we went from an 8-month facility to a 12-month facility, but we cut the supply in half from 2 fields to 1. The field is competitively priced, with residents receiving a lower rate compared to non-residents. It is undoubtedly a popular amenity, and we unfortunately aren't able to accommodate everyone's request. This could be something, because a reservation is already booked in the system, or specifically if a group is looking for 5 days a week during peak hours, we don't want one individual group to monopolize the field. We believe that staff does a great job working with groups and kind of massaging those reservations so that the most amount of people are able to play on the field. We will note that when we opened the field in late 2019, we have not operated what we would consider a normal season. With COVID shutting down the field the majority of 2020, even when it opened up with some strict restrictions. When applications came in for the springtime, so again, when people were completing these in the fall, we were still kind of up in the air, understanding on what could happen or would leagues be able to play. And then in the very beginning of this year, when the Mecklenburg Sports Complex and Matthews got shut down, you had a lot of teams migrate from that facility here, which I think also spurred some phone calls, about why fields weren't available. Again, it's very, very popular. We have over 800 playing hours out there from January through June. As our July through December 30th season approaches, we do anticipate things getting back to normal. Governor Cooper spoke today about loosening some additional restrictions. And then it's our department's desire to see the field utilized. And then with this process, the way it's written, we believe that it provides groups serving residents the priority to use those fields. Again, let me know if you have any questions, either here or offline. I'd be more than willing and welcome to assist and answer questions.
Are there any questions at this time?
I think this is McIntyre. I spoke to Mr. Hayden Kramer at length yesterday on that, on what my views are. So I think he's well aware. There's no need for me to kind of rehash that again.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I do have a question. Hayden, let's say the softball fields or the baseball fields, is there a way that we can show the usage of those fields based on whether it was used by Indian Trail residents or non-residents, and what does that look like? Are the fields, are they being rented 30% of the time or utilized 30% of the time by residents, or exactly who is reserving the fields?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Councilmember Morris. I can definitely pull a report for you for Crooked Creek Park. We've been focusing a little more on Chestnut Square Park, just because that is the field that truly probably spurs the more questions. Again, think of it merely as supply and demand. We have 4 baseball or softball fields, whereas we have one multi-purpose or soccer field, football field, however you want to look at it. So I can give you some numbers at Chestnut right now tonight if you'd like, or I can summarize those in an email that includes both the Crooked numbers if that's easier for you.
Yeah, I think that would be really important. And I guess what I'm kind of reading in the tea leaves is that it may sound like some Indian Trail tax paying residents don't feel like they get to utilize the fields and who are the field maybe bought for and for who. But anyways, yes, I would love to see that report and kind of see what that flushes out.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is Todd Barber. This reservation process here that you're giving us now, is this what has been in place, or have you updated it?
For the most part, some things were removed from the policy or the process. Essentially, this has never been reviewed, quite in depth as this currently, but the content remains the same. So what I mean by that is the criteria that we assign permits to has not changed since we first opened both Crooked Creek Park and Chestnut Square Park. Again, we've eliminated some what we consider burdensome things on the permit holder side to make the process go easier for both residents and non-residents looking to utilize the field.
So has this reservation process increased the ability of Indian Trail groups and residents to get a more priority usage in line of the facilities?
So currently how the process is written, if residents apply during that open window time, yes, the groups that serve residents are given priority over the groups that serve non-residents. So for example, when we opened up time in the fall during that October through November timeframe, every resident that applied received field time during that time. Now, if someone comes in after the fact, so if somebody calls in, January 5th, when we've already, issued permits back on December 5th and says, hey, I need the field, we will work with them to give them as much field space and field time as available. But if that field space has already been reserved, they may have a difficult time, getting time. Now, the analogy that we have used internally in the office is when you're Christmas shopping, the gifts that you're able to get on Christmas Eve are going to be different than the gifts that you can get on Black Friday, because time has elapsed, supply and demand, and other people have come to the table.
Okay, well, it's important. I know to me, I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but, is that, it's kind of like going to Disney World and you got the one line where you go and speed up there and the other one where you wait. And I just think it's very important to me. I think that the Indian Trail groups and residents are given a priority and a period of time up front to reserve the parks first. And I hope that we can maybe just look at this and find a way to make sure that that's written into the reservation process. That's how I feel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. We're probably going to discuss this later on too, I'm sure. But just a quick comment. Years ago, I've done what Todd, and I agree 100% with Todd. I was a baseball commissioner at South Park for 10 years or more and went around and reserved fields all over the place. And at that time, fields were free everywhere and they didn't charge for them. Just to let everybody know, every field everywhere gets charged now. It's just, I'm old and this was 30, 40 years ago and 30 years ago or more, and fields were free. But even when fields were free in Charlotte, you had to line up at 5:30 in the morning on the first day to try to get fields because there weren't enough. And it's just the lay of the land. And I know somewhat what Hayden is, going through. There's not a real easy answer to this, but the easiest thing that I would think that we could do or needed to do is give the Indian Trail residents a day prior to anybody else's, any other organization, at least a day before them to come down and, request fields. After that, like Hayden said, it's pretty well an open market because, a month down the road, most of those fields are going to be gone already, but you cannot leave a field open because maybe somebody never would have got a field. So those fields, I would imagine, Hayden, that fill up rather quickly on the first couple of days. About everything's gone. Is that not correct?
So let me walk through the process a little more. When we open up those reservations for the first month, what staff does is when a reservation comes in, so example, Councilmember Cohen, you send yours in at 12:01 a.m., because you're a seasoned baseball commissioner, you say early bird gets the worm. If you send yours in at 12:01, first day, and I send mine in at 11:59 p.m. right before the end of end of that period closes, they're looked at as the same. Now that you may say, well, why? Well, we believe that gives everyone a month's time, all the commissioners to get together, all the coaches to get together, all the volunteers to get together to say, when can we practice? When can we play? It gives them enough time to have different conversations with different commissioners and things of that nature. Then when we get those, we print out all 35 of them or whatever we may have. And then that's where that stepped criteria comes into place. Again, giving priority to the groups that are serving residents over non-residents. I think we all agree that first, we want the fields occupied. You know, an empty field isn't any fun for anybody, you know, but secondly, we would like to see residents on the field more than non-residents. I don't think that's an argument, you know, across the board anywhere. But once we have all those, then that's when we go through our application process and turn those over with enough time for those groups then to solidify and confirm their schedules, you know, a month later.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I had unmute.
All right. So as I understand, Hayden, I think we all agree we want to give priority to Indian Trail residents and organizations which serve those residents. So am I clear that during the month of October, you receive all the applications, no matter where they come from? Beginning on November 1st, you open up that folder, you then take those applications and you put them in piles based on priority.
Correct.
With the priority being the Indian Trail folks first. You work through that pile, then you move to the second pile, and then you move to the third pile. Is that accurate?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. So when we're looking at that, you know, again, when we do prioritize what we consider a historical user group. So again, these are folks that have been out of the field, you know, season after season after season after season, that are in good standing. Good standing to us means that they are paying on time. They're not leaving the field a mess. We haven't had any, you know, ruckus issues. They're not littering. You know, they're not calling the after hours phone for things that aren't actually emergencies. All of our current historical user groups serve Indian Trail residents.
Well, this is Todd Barber, and it seems like what I'm hearing from Mr. McLaurin and Mr. Hayden is that we do have a window of being able to upgrade this a little bit to where maybe, you know, since we have new Indian Trail residents and new Indian Trail groups, there's no way they're going to be in the historical format or category, and they might get a little bit left out. So sounds like I'm hearing that, yes, we can upgrade this or can increase the window for Indian Trail groups and residents. And that's just, I think, what I'm hearing from the other council people is, you know, I think that would be a great thing to do. And that's what I'm hearing. I think we have a way of doing this. Thank you.
Mr. Barber, is this something you would like to put on as an agenda item for discussion at a later meeting?
Well, yeah. What I'd like to see is, you know, go back, look at the policy, and take our suggestions and come back with, you know, kind of a new and improved version would be great. Is what I'm looking for.
Is that something council would agree upon?
McIntyre here, I would support Mr. Barber's position and his idea.
Mr. Morse?
Agreed.
Mr. Cohn?
Agree.
Mr. Head?
Agree.
Did I get you, Jerry?
You did. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So for now, can we, we'll put this on the table. And Mr. McLaurin, can you put this on an upcoming meeting for a discussion with Hayden and council to possible upgrades and improvements on and refining of this policy?
We'll be glad to, and we appreciate all the suggestions. We had what I thought to be a great meeting with the Mayor Pro Tem earlier this week. We would also like to reach out and extend to any board member who would like to sit down one-on-one with us and spend some time and get your thoughts. And once we have something ready, the contracts are in place to July 1st. And so we'll be working on that and we'll keep you informed.
Thank you. Thank you, Hayden.
Thank you, everyone.
That brings us to Carrie for personnel policy.
Can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
Do we need a stretch break or anything? Probably been a long night for you guys. All right, well, I promise I won't take up too much time, and I'm sorry that you're getting bombarded with policies tonight, but a few days ago, I provided you guys with a executive summary and a draft personnel policy. Our current town policy was adopted in 2006 and hasn't really been comprehensively reviewed since then. We've made significant updates and changes, but the actual document hasn't been reviewed in quite some time. So in October, we started working with Susan Manning, one of our HR consultants who helped with the compensation and pay plan. And part of what she helped us with was to review our policy, make sure that it was up to date and current. So I wanted to review that policy with you tonight. I'm not going to spend too much time because it's about 85 pages, but I just wanted to bring you the significant changes and additions for you to review with you so you could be aware of them. And we can do this different ways. We can put the policy up for adoption at the next council meeting, or we can leave it open and have more discussion if that's what you would like to do. Feel free to stop me along the way. I promise I'm not going to take more than 5 minutes. And next slide, please. So just to tell you a little bit about the process for this policy, I told you that maybe I didn't tell you, this has been a very long work in progress. I've been working on this on and off for about 5 years. Once we finally got the final draft together, we had key staff members review it. And we also had the town manager, the town attorney, and the consultant and myself. So all of us have reviewed the document and are in support of the draft that we presented to you earlier last week. Next slide. So I've kind of broken my slides into articles because that's how the policy is broken up. And there's a lot of similar topics in the policy. So I'm just going to kind of cover the things that are similar. So the first couple articles talk about the actual personnel system, the position classification, and the compensation plan. And as you know, Susan Manning just completed that for us. And as a result of that, there were a couple of things that needed to be updated in the policy. The first one was that we added language regarding the responsibilities of the town manager, the HR director, to make it more clear so that there's an understanding of the policy and the processes for enforcing those policies. That was not in the previous manual, so we decided that was important to have in this policy. The purpose section was added to include that we review this policy every 2 years and we update it as necessary. That way we're not looking at a 15-year-old document, 15 years from now. We decided that it's important to look at it every 2 years and more frequently if needed. The position classification section was edited to reflect the plan periodically being revised and to ensure that our classifications and our job duties are accurate. So, our salary ranges were 5 years behind. We figured that out during our compensation study. So, making sure that we look at that annually will ensure that we don't get behind and we're able to retain our staff. We also added in the compensation section, there was we added the windfall elimination provision. This is the provision that the town falls under for Social Security. I think most of you are aware that the town doesn't participate in that Social Security system. That was not ever in our personnel manual and needed to be, so we've added that language. We always let people know when they're hired during the recruiting process that provision exists, but it was never in our policy. And we also added an on-call pay policy and a travel expense policy. Next slide, please. The next couple articles deal with diversity, workplace safety, and just general employment expectations. There wasn't a lot of changes to this section, but there were a lot of additions. So we added an equal employment opportunity statement and an anti-harassment policy and complaint process, which will includes a new process for filing a complaint against the town manager. somebody have a question? Sorry, I thought I heard something. We also updated the probationary period to be 6 months instead of a year. We felt like after 6 months, that was ample enough time for us to determine if an employee was able to do the duties of the job that was, that they were hired to do. So that was updated. For workplace safety, we've added quite a few things. We added a workplace bullying policy, which also includes a complaint process for employees. We also included a complaint process for allegations of misconduct by the town manager. That wasn't included before. We added a more comprehensive drug-free workplace policy. Our public works department now has CDL vehicles and we have CDL drivers. And because of that, we had to update our DOT regulations to reflect random drug screening. So that was updated in the drug-free workplace policy. And unfortunately, because of COVID, we added a contagious disease policy, which is in place now and definitely needed. And the last policy that we added in this section was a vehicle policy that kind of gives us parameters for how to manage our vehicles. Any questions so far? Okay. And the last article in this section talks about workplace expectations. The only additions here were we added a dress code policy and a new social media and acceptable use policy, and then a romantic relationships policy. So again, a lot of additions in this section. Next slide, please. And the second to last section talks about employee benefits. Not a lot of changes here, but a lot of additions. And a lot of them have been recent. So we added the tuition reimbursement policy that was adopted by council in July. We also added the Juneteenth holiday, which was approved in January. And we added an eligibility section to explain who is eligible for benefits and when they can make changes during open enrollment and what the town's contributions to premiums are. And we also added a voting leave policy and an updated bereavement leave policy, which was adopted in 2020 by council as well. Next slide. And the last section of the policy that is always really fun to talk about is grievance and discipline. We didn't make too many changes to this section, but I do want to just bring to your attention the ones that we did. We expanded the discipline section to list specific examples for misconduct and to clarify the steps a little bit further and what our disciplinary action is. We updated the resignation section to include the exit interview process. This has always been a practice of ours, but it was never included in the personnel manual. So now we know that if you resign, you're going to be asked to participate in an exit interview. And our grievance procedure, not a lot changed there, but we did add a section to include the process for filing a grievance against the town manager. So that is, next slide, please. So that is pretty much all of the major changes. The document is, I think, 80 something pages. I know it's a lot to review, but I do want to thank you for looking at it. I want to thank everybody that read the manual, you know, the directors, the town attorney, the town manager. I know it's hard to look at all of that, but you know, having this document be current will really help move the town forward and help our staff. So that's all I have, and I'm ready for questions if you have any.
Any questions for Carrie?
This is Councilmember Morris. I only have one.
Okay.
What's a voting leave policy?
It's just a policy that allows staff to leave so they're eligible to go vote. It's giving them time to go vote. We didn't have that before, so.
Just curious.
Does that answer your question, Jerry?
Yeah, I've never
okay.
before.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. No, Carrie, what would you like the next step to be?
I'm good. If you guys don't have anything that you want to add, or I think we could probably put it on the consent agenda and have it approved, if you're comfortable with that.
Is anyone in opposition to that?
We could approve it now if you want.
We would appreciate
No
it
one's
if the
got-
board feels comfortable.
If
Okay.
council's comfortable, if anybody against voting on it now?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead,
I'll
Todd.
make a motion to approve the amended personnel policy.
Okay, Mr. Barber's made the motion. Mr. Morse,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. Cohn? David?
Sorry, I had you muted. Approved.
Okay, and Marcus?
Approve.
Okay, let the record show that the personnel policy is approved unanimously by council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that brings us to, okay, 1 second. Are we, okay, thank you. Are there any public comments you received, Kathy?
No
For general?
comments.
None? Anybody else receive general public comments? Okay, I'll open and close the public comments portion, and we'll move on to item 8, which is the consent agenda. If there's no questions, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda, please.
Uh,
What
Mayor?
happened to the law enforcement update?
Wait, did I skip that? Oh, number 7. All right, sorry. Law enforcement update. My agenda is a little bit, okay, my agenda is different than this one. Things were flipped around, forgive me.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. How are y'all?
Okay,
Good.
Briefly cover the numbers with you for the month of February. 180 total reportable incidents, which is about running about the same as last year. 425 business checks, 2,865 preventative patrols, and then 5,222 total events. So we're tracking about the same as we were at the start of COVID, basically last year. Motor vehicle crashes in town, that number staying steady at about 100 or around 100. But our injury crashes are still trending down, which is what we wanted with our traffic group and with the way they're working. So they're doing some really good work. Those 2 grant guys made 245 contacts during the month of February with 342 total criminal and traffic charges between those 2 guys. 121 warning citations, and still speed by far is the highest reason for contacts that they're still having. So probably 2-1 on their charges are the speeding, and those speedings are typically they're not riding for anything less than 15 over. So those your speeds have been as high as 90 and on 74, and few that have touched a little higher than that on the bypass. So but that's kind of where we stand for the month of February. Everything still seems to be going very well, but I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
anyone have any questions for Captain? No?
Thank y'all. Good night.
Okay, thank you, Captain. All right, now that brings us to the consent agenda. If there's no questions, we'll need a motion.
So
Anyone?
moved.
Mr. Cohn's made the motion. Mr. Barber,
Approve.
Mr. Morse,
Approve.
Mr. Head. Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, approve.
Okay, Mr. McIntyre.
Approve.
Okay, consent agenda passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to the, okay. You can hear that brings us to our public hearing.
Got skipped, Mayor.
What did we
that's
miss? There's something different about this agenda on the screen than the one that I have here.
It's just an error. So just
Okay.
go with the screen, that's fine. Public.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no public hearing scheduled and no speakers.
Okay, so old business is the Glenhurst project, which is up first, correct?
Yes, it's on the next, but that rule, the first rule we need to read, Rule 1.
Okay.
11.
Okay, each speaker will be heard once during the public comment or public hearing. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. All written comments received shall be preserved as a public record. That's the Rule 1 we were referring to, correct, Kathy?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to the old business of Glenhurst. Karen, if you want to just step 1. Okay. Did we just want to? Is Brandy here?
Yes, sir.
All right, Brandy. Did you want to just go do a quick overview?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So staff requests council take action on annexation number 160 and CZ 2020-0110. I would like to reread the consistency findings into the record. This development is located within the Austin Village overlay and will help strengthen existing subdivisions and spur redevelopment. This proposed plan is consistent with the comprehensive plan in that it is compatible with the low to medium density residential, not high density development off Potter Road. It's consistent with high quality building design in the area, which will help attract land development and redevelopment. This request promotes several goals of comprehensive plan, including land use and housing goal number 1 and number 5, as well as infrastructure goal number 1. And staff suggests the conditions contained within the agenda packet and also displayed on your screen tonight. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have of me. Should you have any questions of the applicant or their civil engineer, they are in attendance as panelists tonight as well. Thank you.
Okay, first, did council have any questions for Brandy? Did they have any questions for the applicants? Okay, Kathy, you have any written public comments you wanted to
I have 2
read in the record
Would you
that were
like me to read
received?
them?
As long as Karen's not chiming in, we're following procedure.
Yeah, I'm fine. Go ahead.
Okay, Kathy?
All right, we have for Glenhurst, we have 2 comments, 2 written comments. Both are from Weddington and both oppose the project. The first one is Megan Urick. And Ms. Urick writes, these are her words, please. I live at 2204 Potter Cove Lane, Matthews, North Carolina, 28104, in the Potter Creek Estates neighborhood. My property will be gravely impacted by this development because I will now have 4 houses backed right up to my house with a small barrier between, and the entry point will be next to my property. We bought this property in July of 2020. A few reasons for that was it had private roads where there isn't a lot of traffic. This keeps all 3 of my children safe. The houses are all far apart from each other with significant amount of land. There are only 19 houses in this development. I am incredibly and emphatically against putting access to another community in my subdivision, and the fact that it is right next to my house. Not only will it now be loud because of the size of your development, it will also create an unsafe environment for my young children with all the traffic to this development. Please vote no for this development. Sincerely, Megan Urick. The second one is from Pete Dowdy. And Mr. Dowdy, these are his words. After 40 years of living in the area, I have concluded that of all the mismanaged development plans that have been pushed through the high-density Glenhurst project is the absolute most ill-conceived. What possible positive effect will be had from this? I'm totally opposed to it and will remove support from any elected official that supports this, Mr. Dowdy. That's all I have for Glenhurst.
Okay, Karen, the next part is for,
Mayor,
yes, and
I have
this is,
this is Mike.
okay, Mike.
I have a question for Kathy. The last public comment, what was the address?
The address on that one for Mr. Dowdy was 6932 Treefield Road.
Is that Weddington? Does anybody know?
That's
in
Weddington.
Both
It's
is
Weddington. Okay,
from
thank you.
Weddington.
Thank you. Okay. All right. So Karen, the next position is to vote on the annexation, etc.
That's right. The hearing has, since last time Kathy read
Brandy.
the
Randy.
written communication received after that. So you all are on to discussion and vote by council.
If there's no further discussion by council, there'll be, from what I see, 3 separate motions.
That is correct.
Okay. First one being to approve or deny annexation number 160.
This is Todd Barber. I'll make the motion.
Todd, you have the floor.
I make a motion to approve annexation number 160.
Mr. Barber's made the motion to approve annexation 160. Mr. Cohn,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. McIntyre,
Approve.
and Mr. Morse.
Annexation approved.
Let the record show that the council has voted to approve the annexation number 160 unanimously. Can you put up the next motion for them, please? And
If
that
I
would be the
may,
consistency
Mayor,
findings read into record on March 9th and March 23rd for whomever makes the motion.
I'll keep going if that's okay. I make a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as read into the record for CZ 2020-0110 by staff on March 23rd, or should I say March 9th?
Both dates.
March 23rd, 2021 and March 9th, 2021.
Mr. Barber has made the motion to adopt the statement of consistency findings. Mr. Cohn,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. McIntyre,
Approve.
and Mr. Morse.
Deny.
Let the record show that all were in approval with Mr. Morse denying, and let the record show that consistency findings are approved 4-1.
You ready for the next motion?
Next, that's entirely up to you, Todd.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I make a motion to approve the rezoning request ZT 2020-0110, ordinance number 210323-350.
Mr. Barber has made the motion to approve the rezoning request. Mr. Cohn,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. McIntyre,
Approve.
and Mr. Morse.
Deny.
Let the record show all were in favor with Mr. Morse denying. Rezoning request approved 4-1. Okay, that brings us to Garmin.
Yes, sir, Mayor. Staff requests council take action on CZ 2020-0124. I would like to read the consistency findings for this project as well. In summary, this proposal is consistent with a comprehensive plan by promoting the goals of economic development and infrastructure. It's a reasonable request because it offers opportunities for future jobs and a balanced tax base. It's consistent with the surrounding due to the light industrial to the south. Staff and the applicant suggest the conditions listed within the packet and also on the screen for you tonight. A highlight of that does include no outdoor storage. And we'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. The applicant and their civil engineer are in attendance tonight as panelists. Thank you.
Council have any questions for Brandy? Any questions for the applicant? I just have one comment on this project. with the road getting widened and there not being a light there and speed shown on on 74, as the captain just said, in excess of 90 miles an hour, with the possibility of trucks coming out of there and people making a left turn, gives me an eerie feeling of the amount of accidents that could be there if we don't look to have a safety measure put in place other than just the left-hand turn once the road's widened. So if we can keep that on the radar, if this is approved by council, I think it would be appreciated by many. Kathy, do you have an additional public comment?
I do. All right, the additional public comment that I have is from an Indian Trail resident who opposes this project, Michael Falconberry. And Mr. Falconberry's comments are, these are again his words. He said, I am not sure what the deadline for public comments, let me skip down below that one is. Let's see. He says, I'm not sure what the deadline for public comments for the Garmin project is. If comments are not allowed to be read for the March 23rd, please forward to the mayor and council members, which he may have done. My comments are as follows. Comments were made by some of the council members. These are his words. Comments were made by some of the council members was the town of Indian Trail needs a project such as the proposed Garmin Road project. Yes, having continued residential growth will continue to burden the road conditions and require more services provided by the town of Indian Trail. More jobs could be created at Indian Trail for Indian Trail residents. I drove Garmin Road to see firsthand how the surrounding area would be affected by having 3 large buildings along with the increased tractor trailer traffic. Garmin Road is currently a 1-lane road. Part of the road is gravel only and the road dead ends into a local tractor trailer operation. With a 3-story building and 2 light industrial buildings being proposed for the few acres of the property will increase traffic significantly. U-Haul type trucks will also come and go to and from the self-storage facility. The intersection as it is now is dangerous, and if there are no plans for a traffic light, will only make it worse. This project reminds me of so many other projects approved in the past that is too large for the land being proposed. A dead-end road that can cause traffic backups along with the possibility of increased accidents. A better location for this project would be in a business park located at or near the Monroe Expressway. I-485 in Mecklenburg County is proof growth built next to a major road. If done correctly, will benefit everyone if the location is a good location. The Chestnut Parkway, if and when built, could provide better locations for light industrial without impeding nearby residential areas. What looks good on paper doesn't necessarily mean it is a good fit for the location intended in reality. The town of Indian Trail needs to stop the habit of putting projects where it isn't a good fit. I have witnessed the last 10 years the same mistakes being made, and the pattern has to be changed. When will that change happen? Thank you, Michael Falconberry.
Okay, if there's no further questions by council or discussion, we'll need 2 motions on this one.
Well, I do have a question, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Morse, yes.
And to your comment about the road, the left-hand turn lane, a light, those things are out of our control though, correct?
In the past, people that have, yes, to a point, but correct me, Mr. McLaurin, if I'm wrong on this, that in the past, people can pay, the town can pay for a light, a developer can pay for a light. DOT is not going to turn down money for a traffic light. At least that's how it's been explained to us in the past.
I want to ask, let me make a comment. There are partnerships. Brandy and Todd may have more technical information. I would add that after the public hearing that Captain James and I spoke about some sort of safety measures for left turn traffic going out of South Fork onto Old Monroe Road. He was going to research, and I think he was going to speak with Todd. And, you know, if we had a recommendation on that part, then we would follow up. Brandy, are you aware of traffic lights, or maybe Todd Hunsinger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McLaurin. So just to speak briefly, this issue came up at the planning board stage. We actually reached out, Todd reached out to NCDOT to see about reinstalling that traffic light. If you remember, it was up there temporarily. I think most folks really liked it. It was up, my understanding, it was put in place because of some construction on Indian Trail Road. So it was not designed to be there permanently. DOT did acknowledge they would allow it to be reinstalled, but it would be at the cost to the town or the developer. Obviously, there is circumstances that exist today that warrant a light or some traffic measures. And so putting the burden on the developer alone doesn't seem entirely reasonable. But DOT was open to having the traffic light there. They're just not going to fund it in any way.
Do we have a cost on what that would be? And if there was any discussion about cost sharing between the developer and possibly the town as a condition to this approval?
We have not had a discussion at my level. Brandy, have you had anything on your end?
I think Todd's going to chime in for us.
Just to discuss the cost. I mean, you're talking between $250,000 to $300,000 for to install poles, lights, signal loops, and a traffic box. But no, there was no discussions I know on my end that was ever entertained.
Okay. So I think that's something worthwhile to look at. 250,000, 300,000. It's not chump change. I think it's affordable to a developer and possibly the town. But if you're looking at it as a safety measure and you see what we pay for the traffic deputies to help out, it might be worth having a conversation. So I'm curious, can we table this or have the discussion with the proper parties and to see if there could be some kind of agreement forged?
Hey, excuse me, can I chime in? This is Marcus Arroyo. How are you doing?
Hi.
Mark, I believe you and Mason are on this call as well. I can't see anything right now, and I don't know if you can see me, but these conversations have all been had with NCDOT, the town. There are traffic measures that have been put in place. There is a controlled access point off of Garmin, and which would be a right in, right out. Is that accurate, Mark?
Yeah, sorry, Mark, I'll step in there. Yes, that is accurate. Not the only issue we see with it. We're not opposed to that kind of discussion, but once NCDOT comes through with their super street design and actually installs it, then the traffic lights are the NCDOT is trying to remove those holdups in traffic by proposing these right in, right out conditions and going down to the turnarounds at major intersections. But yes, I understand the interim from the time we start breaking ground or opening up to when NCDOT has their improvements installed is kind of an unknown that we know right now. But yeah, even if you're doing a traffic signal in this area, and Todd may be able to jump in and tell me that something different, I don't believe NCDOT is going to change their design for a permanent intersection or lighted intersection.
Well, this is Todd Barber and all, because any traffic light or anything now would just be temporary, because if I remember right, coming out of Garmin Road on the new Monroe, when Monroe Road gets extended, that was only going to be a right-hand turn coming out of Garmin Road, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's no longer going to be in the future going to be a full intersection there. So anything we do now would be a temporary thing.
Correct.
Because it's eventually going to change. Okay, so that's where I would be like, well, I spend $300,000 to put up a light and it's just going to be taken down. DOT is not going to approve that for sure. But I don't know if we did a temporary light before, maybe that's an option. I don't know what the cost on the temporary light would be, but I do know in the design and the future of this, know how long the project's going to take to do, but eventually that's just going to be a right-hand turn, and the concern of an intersection is not going to be a concern anymore. So, yeah, that was my comment. That's what I was looking at listening to this. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Marcus Arroyo, you still on the line here?
Yes, I am.
There's going to be trucks coming in and out of there, correct?
Yes, sir.
And now I'm trying to think of, is that directly across from South Fork?
Yes.
So it's like a full way intersection right there. Okay.
Currently it is. It'd be helpful, Mr. Mayor, if we can pull up that exhibit, maybe, Ms. Brandy, if we can pull up that exhibit and show that intersection, how it was designed by NCDOT, I believe. There's something on there, some documents that we might be able to show to better understand it.
Yeah, but that's after the road. I'm talking after the road's completed. That's not an issue. It's the idea of trucks coming out of there making a left-hand turn onto the road now. And
well, I mean, I think yes, we could have a discussion with this, but I think at some point we could actually provide a median control that forces, to do away. We can't obviously completely block off that on the NCDOT roadway, but we could probably, since we're redoing Garmin Road to a certain point, I think it'd be more beneficial to put in a pork chop median type thing that is forcing folks to turn right out of there. So that'll actually force all of the tractor trailers or larger trucks to make a right movement out of there, temporary.
I'm no traffic expert, but I think that would definitely be a big help as the road is designed at this particular moment. Just people just don't slow down on that road. And if a tractor trailer pulls out at the speed it pulls out, making a left turn, I just see disaster written all over it right now.
Can we make that as a condition that there's no left turns then?
Mayor, if I may, I would just caution you on making conditions that are not within the control of the town completely. So there needs to be some sort of language, based on approval by NCDOT.
If the developer is okay with it and council is okay with it, to word it that way and bring it to DOT, and they're willing to put in a little median to kind of force that right turn for the time being, however that may be constructed, whether it be the yellow barriers that kind of force them that way or a more permanent structure for the time being, if that's okay with everyone.
Mayor, if I can, could I get Marcus to confirm verbally that he's in agreement with that condition?
Before he does, can we just get Karen to kind of opine from a standpoint, if you guys don't mind, please?
Yeah, so depending on how complicated the land use condition is, if it's too complicated, I'm going to recommend that we either just take a quick break and chat through so that we have the language appropriate, so that everybody can actually read we're talking about, or we bump this to the next, bump it into the next meeting, and we can come up with a exact language for the.
Whatever everyone's comfortable with. It's a concern of the residents and it's a concern of the people around there. So it was something that I felt needed to be brought up.
I'm very thankful for you bringing that up, because that's the big concern. And when I was talking about a light, I too am not a traffic expert by any stretch. So I just didn't know how to mitigate those left turns coming out of there and coming and going into there with those big traffic tractor trailers. If we need some time look, I like this project for the most part. There's just little bitty things. If we could kind of work through that, and if that means we push it off to the next council meeting to do it right, I'm okay with that. If we can do it tonight, I'm okay with that too, but just so that we do it right, guys.
Well, first and foremost, Marcus Aurora, are you okay pushing it to the next meeting and try and work through something where we kind of can approach DOT and keep it simple and not too costly for you?
Yeah,
For us?
I'm good with agreeing with the condition that way. I didn't hear all the comments by the town attorney. I think I heard the gist of it. It just broke up. Not that I couldn't understand it. It just broke up on my personal phone here. I'm good with agreeing to sit down between the town and NCDOT and come up with a safe experience based on there and what's allowed there. And the future plan, we all see what this future plan is, and sitting down with DOT and understanding what their process, and that we've been able to accomplish that in recent projects. And a perfect example, Todd, is the one we were able to do on at Glen Oaks, just on the other side of that. And we did put a pork chop right in, right out to limit certain accesses there, and that's worked out very well from my understanding. So I'm good with putting a condition on approval process right now to go ahead and sit down with NCDOT. Putting this off and sitting down with NCDOT is not really. I don't see the benefit on that. We're good to start attacking this and sitting down with NCDOT with the condition to make sure that is adequate for the residents and the safety of everybody. Absolutely.
This is Todd Barber. This is to the town attorney. Can we approve based on his condition? Can we do that today?
And so is the condition, the applicant will install a pork chop to pork chop median to for right out only access onto Garmin Road?
Well, I thought it's off of Garmin Road.
Right.
Yeah.
Of Garmin Road, okay.
So that's a yes.
Can we get that in writing? Can I get that, Karen, Attorney Walter, do you have that completely in writing?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Give me a minute and I'll write it down. And then again, this is going, the issue we've got is that this is out of our hands. It's NCDOT. So I guess that's going to be the only.
Well, if
we don't have
NCDOT
control over.
denies it, then the condition's removed.
That would have to be part of the condition. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Hold on. I'm writing. Give me about 2 minutes, and then I'll read it.
Mayor,
Yes,
could we
sir.
take a 5-minute break to give the attorney time to write that and to give us a little bit of time to take care of other things? Or
Yeah, go
2-minute
ahead.
break?
Take a 2-minute break. That's fine.
Thank you.
Whoever needs it.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
So are we in recess now, Mr. Mayor?
I just pictured on the 2-lane road there, a truck making a left turn, someone coming the other way and just going right underneath it, or someone coming from racing through the light there, keep going down towards Monroe, doing the same thing right into a tractor trailer, because it just can't pick up that kind of speed. Or even a construction vehicle.
That's a bad intersection anyway. People trying to come off of South Fork. Has been for years.
As council returns, if you would just,
I'm here.
okay,
Here.
Marcus is here, Jerry's here, Todd's here.
I'm here.
That was Mike is here. David's the only one I can't see because all I see is ceiling or top of the door.
See if I can get him.
So just a quick question. Did we get a document or something from Karen, or somebody's going to read it?
Karen's going to read it, Marcus,
Okay, thank you.
and they're going to verbally agree into record.
Okay.
Right.
Marcus, are you okay with this in terms of the Marcus Arroyo? Sorry, it's funny saying my own name, but are you okay with the approach?
Mr. McIntyre, yes, I'm good with the approach. I think this is a good thing.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Are we back?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to say we're back, but I don't want to start without Mr. Cohn. Oh, there he is. You back, David?
I'm back.
All right, recess is over. Karen, if you want to read that into record, pending the
Okay.
approval.
All
Or-
right, so after discussion with the applicant and the town, both parties are willing to consider the following condition to be added to the conditional ordinance as follows.
Can we
Subject
please-
to NCDOT approval.
Can we please mute our line so we can hear you clearly? There's interference.
All right, here's the condition. It's still bouncing back. Okay, here's the condition. Subject to NCD approval, applicant will work with NCDOT and town to install a pork chop median to prevent left turns out of Barman Road. Market applicant, can I get your verbal assent, confirmation that you do agree to this condition?
We agree to this condition, yes.
Town, and then if town, this will be a condition that the town can vote for when it does vote to approve the conditional zoning, if it votes to approve it. And we will just ask that you reference the conditional zoning as amended with this additional condition when you do make your motion.
Okay, all right, council, is there any other questions?
Yeah, which one of y'all are gonna make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Well,
I'll take it.
we need to bring up the two motions.
Yep. I have the motion, the first motion,
Okay,
and I'll make it, I'll make a motion to adopt the statement of consistency as read into the record for CZ 2020-0124 by staff on March 9th, 2021 and March 23rd, 2021.
thank you, Marcus. Mr. McIntyre has made the motion to find the statement of consistency findings. Mr. Barber,
Approved.
Mr. Cohen,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
and Mr. Morse.
Approve.
I need a second motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the rezoning request, CZ, the conditional rezoning request, CZ 2020-0124, ordinance number 210323-351, and include the amended condition as verbally approved by the applicant, Mr. Arroyo, as read into the record by our town attorney, Ms. Walter.
Okay, Mr. McIntyre has made the motion to approve the conditional rezoning based on the verbal agreement as stated by Attorney Walter and agreed upon by the developer, Mr. Arroyo. Mr. Barber,
Approved.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. Cohen,
Approve.
Mr. Morse.
Approve.
Okay, let the record show that it's approved unanimously. Mr. Arroyo, once again, will you state your agreement of working with NCDOT as read by Ms. Walter and the town?
Yes, that is confirmed. We agreed to that condition.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to new business, JB Watson audit contract. Mr. Wadowitz.
Jim should be coming up. Let's see if he is there.
Yeah, I'm here, Mike.
Mr. Mayor, Jim
Thank you,
will be
Mayor.
doing his presentation.
Yes, sir.
Did everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, and welcome, council. Good to be before you. Tonight, basically, I'm looking for your support to bring back JB Watson and Company, PLLC, to provide auditing services for our fiscal 21. This year, we're now 8 months, 23 days into the year. It would be at the same fee as last year. Again, I'm projecting another positive financial year. So I'm looking for your support so the mayor can sign this contract.
Is that all you were looking for, Jim?
That's it, sir.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Wadowitz?
One question.
Yes.
How long have we had this particular auditor?
This will be our 6th year, Jerry.
Is that, under normal circumstances, do you stick with the same auditor for that long, or do you put an auditor behind the auditor?
There's different opinions on it. Certainly perfectly acceptable. Some people like to change. Mike and I talked about it a little bit. We're doing a banking RFP this year, so we thought maybe we would study that a little bit more next year, Jerry.
Councilmember Morris, that's correct. Right now, we have an RFP out for banking services, which if for some reason we change banks, that's kind of a major undertaking. And so our plan was next year at this time, do the RFP for the auditor. Instead of trying to do two big things at one time.
So just so I'm up to speed, this is only for then a short period of time, less than a year?
For this year, Mike, fiscal year 2021, right?
Okay.
And if I could add, the process is there's a standard contract with the local government commission that the reason we do it this time of the year is we signed the contract. It has to go up to the LGC for approval out of Raleigh and then comes back. So they're year-to-year contracts.
I'll just say this, in normal business practice from having been a banker and a lot of different things, that you usually don't want to have an auditor for more than 3 years. So we've stretched that to the limit.
So my question would be, if for some reason, if council didn't feel like we wanted to stick with this auditor for whatever reason, is there a fiscal penalty for switching auditors at this point? What's the downside or upside?
I'll take that one. No penalty, Jerry. I guess we would have to do an RFP. I mean, that's when we brought them in here in 2016. It was one of my first tasks. And, you know, we brought in 3 finalists and we interviewed 3, and JB Watson was a good choice. I've been in this business a long time, and I said this the other night. We have a good relationship with them, and they're there all year long if you have any questions. And they've guided us through some really good years.
I think if I could add, Councilmember Morris, probably the downside is right now, local governments across the state are making these decisions. We may run into a crunch because as contracts are being signed, auditors are beginning to fill up the dates for their audit. And I don't really know what the market is right now as to where they are with vacancies versus occupancies. But the later we wait, the more pressure will be to try to be able to get our audit started good and early.
Yeah, all reasonable explanations. I'm sensitive to some of the other council members' concerns over the years that we don't have a new auditor, you know, taking a look. So I just wanted to bring that up. But you know, I defer definitely to Jim and McLaurin's professional judgment on that. I'm good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Ooh, boy.
Any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions, but Mr. Manager, just one point. I do appreciate the fact that you guys are taking into consideration the fact that we're looking for new banking, and you want to bring an auditor on to be able to help with that, move all these things, all the accounts connected with that. So I do appreciate that. I also appreciate the fact that next year you're going to bring back an RFP for hopefully selecting a new auditor. As is mentioned by a few council members, in accounting, you're taught really 3 to 5 years is a normal process. After that, you kind of want to change, not because of anything that you've seen, but just to kind of keep everybody on the level. So I do appreciate you guys doing that. And if there's no further questions, I'll make a motion to you know, get this done.
Is that a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the FY E 622 JB Watson audit contract.
Mr. McIntyre's made a motion to approve the JB Watson contract for fiscal year June 22nd. Okay,
It's June 21, Mayor.
what was that?
It's June 21. There's a typo on that 22.
Okay, there we go.
June 21. I've got it.
June 21. Okay, all right, there's a typo. Mr. Cohen,
Approve.
Mr. Barber,
Approve.
Mr. Head,
Approve.
Mr. Morse.
Approve.
Okay, that was unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Wadowitz.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay, the last item here under new business was brought up by me. I was tagged many times on Facebook to recognize a gentleman who works for Walmart who's contributed to our community for many years and for the town to do something. And based off the responses, and Abby, if you're still here, correct me if I'm wrong, there's been over 1,000 responses by residents throughout Indian Trail and the county for that matter to recognize this man for all he does for those that shop at Walmart, to go above and beyond, his smiling face. And this is what Citizen in the Quarter is about, and having resident input. And I wanted to bring that forth to council. If we can't recognize Mr. Joel Galix as Citizen of the Quarter based off the recommendation of so many throughout the town and other surrounding towns who happens to work for a major retailer here in Indian Trail.
So does Mr. Gillick live in Indian Trail, sir?
You know, I don't know where Mr. Galix lives. I know he works here in Indian Trail. I don't know much about him. We kind of, Abby, did you find out any more about him?
I think Kathy was looking up. We were trying to find out contact information from him. Did we ever receive that, Kathy?
We did get the contact information. Alicia Massey sent us an email with his phone number, but we just got that yesterday. But we have been in touch with the marketing specialist with Walmart. So we do have information on who he is and what they like about him. And Abby was doing more research on that as well.
So just one thing, Mr. Mayor, I have no problem with recognizing him as Citizen of the Quarter if he lives in Indian Trail. I think that's a good gesture. If he doesn't, I think that we've done other things to recognize people who are of service to our community who may not live in the city limits of Indian Trail. So I'm open to either one, being honest with you.
Okay, so pending his, here's how we, pending him living in Indian Trail, is anybody opposed to naming him the Citizen of the Quarter for this quarter? If not, we will come up with a town recognition for his service as a contributor to the town and what he's done. You know, we've been pretty creative in the past for that.
I'm good with that.
Okay, is that Mike? All right.
Yes.
Okay. That satisfy you, Marcus?
Yeah. I'm good. I'm good with that
All right.
approach. I
Well,
think that's good.
well, because he's gonna be at our, along with what I'm assuming with the people from Walmart at our April 13th meeting. And by then we'll have it, if with council's blessing, if he lives in Indian Trail, we'll name him Citizen of the Quarter. If not, I will have Kathy and I will sit down and work with Mr. McLaurin and work out something from the town in appreciation based off the overwhelming response for this gentleman. Mr. Morris?
No, all good.
Okay. Mr. Cohen?
I'm good.
And did I leave anybody out? I don't think so.
I'm good too.
Okay. Well, all right, Mr. Barber. Okay.
How good are you?
I had to leave you out sooner or later.
Oh,
Okay.
that's fine.
All right. We'll update soon as we find out more information. It's been kind of a rush thing. Just want to make sure I updated council in case they've been on What's Up Indian Trail and the many posts in regards to this fine man. So thank you. All right. that brings us to the manager's update, Mr. McLaurin.
Sure. I have sent you the budget retreat package that came from Centralina the other day. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, just let us know. One of the things we need to do is set up a budget workshop once I've had a chance to scrunch the details of the budget. And there has been interest in doing that on a Saturday morning in April. April 3rd, I think, is Easter weekend. April 10th is the litter pickup with an alternate date of the 17th. So I want to throw out maybe potentially having a budget workshop on Saturday morning, the 17th, where we can kind of nail down some agreements on the upcoming budget. Several of you have given me your thoughts and comments, which has been very helpful. Does anybody object having a Saturday morning budget workshop?
I don't object to a Saturday morning, but I cannot do the 17th. I can do any Saturday in April except the 17th.
Let me ask Kathy to go ahead. Any other board member?
I cannot do the 17th as well. I've had previous engagement.
Okay. No, thanks for letting us know. Let me ask Kathy to kind of work on that, and maybe we need to do it a date outside of a Saturday. So we'll work on that.
So just to be clear, that's the only day for myself as well.
Yes. So I can meet on the 3rd, I can meet on the 10th as well. I can meet on the 24th, I guess it would be, but I cannot do the 17th.
I can't do the 3rd.
We may look at the 24th then, but let us put our hit. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
I was feeling kind of left out, so I'm busy on the 17th too.
All right. Let's, so I think what I'm hearing is about everybody can't do the 17th, which is okay. I have promised the board that if we do one on a Saturday morning, we'll have some food and coffee, and we'll get in, take care of business, and then wrap up. So one of the things we're going to do when we introduce the budget at the first meeting in May, we want to do something a little bit different that other cities have tried with a lot of success. And instead of me standing up, reading out 52 PowerPoint slides, I think we're going to start with a real short 2 to 3 minute video, which makes the budget come alive as to what the manager is recommending and what does that mean as far as service. I think some of you have seen examples of that, and then we can go into the more detail, but we want to use that budget, that video, as kind of an education piece for citizens. And, you know, where are we? What does this mean for you? So stay tuned for that. I mentioned earlier the litter pickup. If you are available, April 10th, we would love to have you here. I think we're gathering Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Adam has talked about that a little bit. He is the point person, and we will have room for you. We've limited it to 50 people. We still have some vacancies, and I will be out there, and hopefully I'll see you there also. Every 2 weeks, I send you out a manager's report, which is kind of a highlighted item of what's going on in town. We send that out typically for the week in which the board is not meeting. So when you take a look at that, if you have any questions, if there's a better way of doing it, don't hesitate to just pick up the phone and let me know, because we want it to be a useful document for you. I did find out that last night the town of Stallings voted to recommend an occupancy tax and supported the light rail resolution. And that's just FYI, no action needed on your part. And finally, this is the last meeting in March. And if memory serves me correctly, we were going to meet virtually to the last meeting in March. And my question is, does the board feel like they're ready to go back to live meetings in the council chambers? We meant to add that to the agenda, but it was simply an oversight.
I think we did that last meeting. I looked back on our notes. We agreed to start April 1st with all our meetings in person next month.
Okay. My mistake. And so unless there's any objection by any board member, then we will we will proceed forth. That's
Karen,
all
you're. Oh, did
That's
somebody
all I
say
have,
anything?
sir.
Okay, Karen, you're up. Karen.
I know, I'm sorry, I was clicking all over my screen except on my mute button. Sorry about that. Mr. Head,
Yes.
Council comments.
Oh, council comment. I just want to congratulate Brandy and Carrie for being a couple of the top 100 women in Union County. Just goes to show what kind of staff that we have. And listening tonight and previous nights, I am 100% convinced that we have a tremendous staff, and I thank all of them. That's all I have.
Mr. Barber.
Yes, again, congratulations to Carrie and Brandy. Well deserved. I'd like to thank Mr. Huntsinger, Mr. McLam, and Mr. McLaurin for jumping on fixing Park Road. I know the residents and business over there really appreciate what you're doing to get that road back in good shape. I want to thank Captain James for his time yesterday, and just so everybody knows, I was in the front seat of the police car yesterday, so that was good, and I really appreciate his time. And just want to let everybody know that there is litter pickup. You can reach out to the town or reach out to Representative David Willis and his group. There's groups doing a great litter sweep here in Union County and Indian Trail, and I think it's a great thing. And I wish everybody, happy Easter coming up. Thank you.
Mr. Cone.
Ditto. Happy Easter, everybody, and I'll see you next time.
Mayor Alvarez.
I'm going to ditto their remarks and tell everyone to have a blessed evening.
Mr. McIntyre.
I'm just gonna ditto as well and have a good evening.
And Mr. Morse.
Well, we're not going to bring up the Carolina Tar Heels this week, that's for sure. So on that note, I think I'll just conclude my comments, and everyone have a good night.
Can I bring up the Wisconsin Badgers?
No.
Here's my alma mater, by the way.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to remind the board that one of your members had a birthday earlier this week, and that's Councilmember Barber.
Well,
we generally, Mike, we sing happy birthday as a group. We've done that in the past. So who would like to start it? Usually the town manager is the one who starts us off, if you would.
All right, you brought it up. You got to sing it.
All right, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Todd Barber. Happy birthday to you.
Good job. Good job.
And
my wife said looking good at 58. My teenager said you better lose some weight at 58. So that's when you got good family and friends. Thank you for everybody.
Well, on that note, Todd, your birthday present was to ride in the front of a police car for once.
Yep.
Not in handcuffs.
Yes, you can make the motion to adjourn then, birthday boy.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Mr. McIntyre?
Approve.
Mr. Head?
Approved.
Mr. Morris?
Agreed.
And Mr. Kong?
He's gone.
He's already left. He's already gone. All right, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you, Mayor. Bye-bye.